That's so Miss Sale.
Wait, we're doing Zoom now?
We're not. So I thought I sent a message to everybody earlier, an email. Maybe I didn't.
Oh, I don't check email.
Well, that's your first problem.
1,000 unopened school email.
Literally. Let me check attendance and then I'll talk about it. Laura's not here. Nate is. Brandon is. Dylan is not. Andre, Elijah. Jemiah was here. I saw her this morning. Okay. I thought I saw Kat, but I guess not. Nevaeh and Deontay are both gone. Charlotte, obviously. Riley is here. Tiana and Brenaya. Okay, so what I was going to talk about was I sent out an email earlier just to say, I know obviously we have a lot of people that are having to stay home for quarantining, either because they have COVID or they've been exposed to somebody with COVID and are not vaccinated. And in that case, you have to stay home for 10 days. So hopefully, well, they told us we could do this, but we don't have to. I decided to go ahead and do it and just set up Zooms for every class. I'm letting you guys know in case any of you wind up having a quarantine, but it's not hybrid learning. Like I'm not going to let people have their cameras on or chat on or anything. I'm not going to be paying attention to the camera on the computer. I'm still going to be paying attention to y'all. But this way, for people who are staying home for 10 days, they can watch it back later, or they can join and just listen. But in the next day, maybe even before today's over, I'll put on the Zoom homepage or the Canvas homepage just a link to where you can find all the previous classes Zooms. That being said, we might go virtual, any day. So those Zooms are already set up. I'll send out other stuff if that happens, which I think it will. I just don't know when. Do you have a question?
We can log on, or that we are required?
Well, right now, if you are quarantining, you can log on. You're not required to.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Can I send that to everybody?
Not right now,
Oh,
but we won't go the whole time. And my God, look at that first one though. That's me.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do
Okay, well, I just told you everything in it.
that. It would mess up.
I would say if and when we do go virtual, well, actually, if and when we go virtual, I'll send you another email. Maybe I'll send one to every student, but with the tagline, please read, especially Brandon Corley. I think that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
If it had the subject line, Brandon Corley, read this, would you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good to know. Okay, so today, bell ringer, detail. Actually, I haven't posted this yet. Cool. One moment, please. Sorry, I should have had this ready to go. My day has been a little bit nuts, unfortunately. Sorry, this is taking a minute. Boop, boop. Tomorrow is September. That's nuts. So what? Really? How old are you gonna be? 17. Okay. Let me connect my screen. I accidentally connected to the wrong class earlier. Okay, so yesterday, come on. Yesterday we looked at this really disgusting sentence. Just to remind you, our sentence is, whenever he was so fortunate as to have near him a hare that had been kept too long, or a meat pie made with rancid butter, he gorged himself with such violence that his veins swelled and the moisture broke out on his forehead. Absolutely disgusting. I imagine he's fat. It doesn't say that, but I imagine he's fat. And he's just eating all this rotten food so vigorously that it is making him break into a sweat, and like the veins are popping out of his neck and head. He sounds gross. So what we're gonna do, and I'll give you all about 5 minutes to do it, because all you have to do is write one sentence, but you're writing a sentence describing someone with disgusting eating habits. It must be one correct sentence and it must contain at least 3 vivid details. So like in this sentence, details were like a hair that had been kept too long, rancid butter, gorged himself with violence, his veins swelled, the moisture broke out in his forehead. That's got like 5 details at least. But you guys are going to write one sentence, one correct sentence with at least 3 vivid details describing someone with disgusting eating habits. Let me give you all about 5 minutes. If anybody wants to share their sentence, they can, but they don't have to. I am looking forward to reading them though. I mean, that's a pretty good sentence though. Even though I think Tiana's eating like a normal person. It's a good it's a good sentence. You're definitely focusing on details. That's good. Chapter 3. We need more time? Yes. Okay. No, well, that's easy. Where you're writing it is voice lessons detail 1. This is an opinion question, but on your Canvas, do y'all prefer to have the modules like the most recent one is at the top or at the bottom? Top. Okay. Hmm. What is this? Okay. Anybody feel really happy with their sentence and want to read it out loud? No. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do today, I don't think this is going to take a terribly long time, actually. We are going to read some poetry, some colonial poetry. This is one of the most famous like early poets in America. And not that many women at the time were like writers. So that's there's something to be said there. Yes, sir.
Is it okay if I say F off in my sentence?
You can say F off. Yes. So we're going to look at, are we going to look at all 4? We might just do 3. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, but I like that one. To my dear and loving husband. Okay, I think we're just not going to do this first one. So we're going to read 3 poems. Don't worry, I will kind of help y'all understand what they're about because this is pretty old, like archaic language, like lots of apostrophes where they've left out letters like or and ner. But what y'all are gonna do, we're gonna read 3. Y'all are gonna just choose one of the 3 that we're gonna read. and answered these questions. Make sure that you tell me which poem you're talking about. But we're going to read it. I want you to describe any evidence of Bradstreet's values. How do we know her values? She's a Puritan woman. What do y'all remember about Puritans from yesterday? They are weird, different than us, usually. But what kind of stuff do they believe? Or what's their lifestyle like? Puritans. I remember yesterday when I said the word Puritan, what does that make you think of? It was either you, Riley, or Laura. One of y'all said pure. And that, yeah, it was Laura. Absolutely, that's a thing. They are very concerned with like making their souls pure. They are very like strictly religious. They kind of believe in like not really having any fun or pleasure in life, because all of our fun and pleasure comes after life in heaven with Jesus. So they're very concerned about like not sinning. They're really afraid to, I'm making them sound terrible. They're really afraid to do anything other than like walk the straight and narrow path towards heaven. Because at any point the devil could get you, or God might decide that you're not good anymore and he might cast you into the lake of fire. We're going to read a sermon later in the week that shows like how crazy they got sometimes. And it's one of those things where like a lot of their beliefs aren't that far off from things that modern day Christians believe, but they're so much more like extreme and more focused on like the wrath of God than the love of God. So they are very like strict, very pious and religious. They don't really care for material things that much because all of their rewards are heavenly rewards. So keep those things in mind as we're reading these. Probably what I'll do is read each one and then kind of go through it and talk and say what, like, talk about what it's trying to say. We are not going to read this first one because I decided I only wanted to do 3, and that's my least favorite of the ones that we have. So we're going to do this one. To my dear and loving husband. You can see she was not old when she died. How old is that? 60? 60. Yeah, not an old lady. So this one's pretty easy to read. It rhymes. It doesn't have any like really crazy old-timey terms. And since it's to my dear and loving husband, that's pretty obvious what it's going to talk about. Okay. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, you women, if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the east doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live in love, let's so persever that when we live no more, we may live ever. So what's this poem about? What's the basic gist? Loving her husband, that's it. Yep. This one's pretty straightforward, really. Most of it is like, boy, nobody has ever loved you as much as I love you. No wife has ever been happier than I am because you love me, and that's all I need. If you look at the questions y'all are going to answer, it says describe any evidence of Bradstreet's values and explain any poetic devices you see. Is there anything in this where you can see like some of her Puritan or religious values? The third to last line, yeah, the heavens reward thee manifold, which manifold means like a bunch of times over. And so she's saying like, I can't ever repay you for your love, but I'm hoping that you'll get all these rewards in heaven, which we know that's kind of what they're focused on, is heavenly rewards. And it says, while we live in love, let's so persevere. Let's keep being in love, so that after we're dead, we can have this happy eternal life in heaven with each other and God. Pretty basic. This is, I'd say, probably the easiest one to kind of digest. It is just a love poem, but it's got that little infusion of religion and Puritan values at the end. Okay, let's move on. This one is called The Author to Her Book. It's a little bit more complicated. You might see words like runnest or mayest. We've got a lot of, what do you call that? Apostrophes, where they've just left out words. That's just a thing that happens in old-timey poetry. But more importantly, this whole poem is kind of a metaphor. And you can tell that because the title is called The Author to Her Book. She's talking to her book. So already I would expect to see some personification. She's treating it like it's a character. So I'm going to read it, and then again, I'll kind of go through and talk about what it means a little bit. Thou ill-formed offspring of my feeble brain, who after birth didst by my side remain, till snatched from thence by friends, less wise than true, who thee abroad exposed to public view, made thee in rags, halting to the press to trudge, whose errors were not lessened, all may judge. At thy return my blushing was not small, my rambling brat in print should mother call. I cast thee by as one unfit for light, the visage was so irksome in my sight. Yet being mine own, at length affection would thy blemishes amend, if so I could. I washed thy face, but more defects I saw, and rubbing off a spot still made a flaw. I stretched thy joints to make thee even feet, yet still thou runnest more hobbling than is meet. In better dress to trim thee was my mind, but not save homespun cloth in the house I find. In this array mongst vulgars mayest thou roam, in critics' hands beware thou dost not come, and take thy way where yet thou art not known. If for thy father asked, say thou hadst none, and for thy mother, she alas is poor, which caused her thus to send thee out of door. Okay, so this one's a little bit more complicated. And I feel like this one has a lot more poetic device to it than like strong implications of her religious values. But I really like the metaphor in this one, because essentially she's talking to her book and she's referring to it like it's her kid. Like we call our children our offspring. And so in this first line, it says, you're an ill-formed offspring of my feeble brain. Kind of talking about her book like she doesn't think it's very good. If she says that it's ill-formed and of her feeble brain, I mean, we are our own worst critics. So if she wrote a book, she's like, she doesn't think it's very good. But till snatched from thence by friends, my friends took this book from me and exposed it to public view, published it with all of its flaws, where errors were not lessened. She was embarrassed about it. At their return, my blushing was not small. She calls the book her rambling brat, which like we call kids brats. I cast thee by as one unfit for light. Again, she doesn't think it's very good. She doesn't want people to see this book that she's written. But yet being mine own, at length affection would thy blemishes amend if I could. Because you're mine, because you're this thing that I created, I have affection for you, and I would love to really shine up this book and make it the best it can be, and then let other people see it. But as it is right now, I'm kind of embarrassed by it. Which if you've ever written anything, probably familiar with this feeling. Like you like it because you made it, but you're worried it's not good. You won't let anybody see it. There's a lot of her talking about how it's not very good. Maybe we can dress it up a little bit. Like if you put a good jacket on it, maybe people won't realize that the contents are actually not very good. She's worried about critics. And it says, if for thy father asked, say thou hadst none. say that you don't have a father, because your only parent really is me. And for thy mother, alas, she is poor, which caused her thus to send thee out of door. Which basically is saying, like, the only reason I wrote this book and tried to get it published is because I needed the money. I wouldn't have done it just because I was proud. So whereas the first one I feel like was pretty straightforward, but had that sort of infusion of her Puritan values, this one, you don't see that stuff as much, but she's got, if you're trying to write about poetic devices, there are a ton here: personification, metaphor, rhyme, obviously. You probably have some more like smaller metaphors and similes, definitely some imagery. Okay, so our last one that we're going to read, this one definitely has both Puritan stuff and poetic devices, and it's called Verses Upon the Burning of Our House. It's a pretty straightforward title, talking about a fire at her home. Okay. In silent night, when rest I took, for sorrow near I did not look. I wakened was with thundering noise and piteous streaks of dreadful voice. That fearful sound of fire and fire, let no man know, is my desire. I starting up the light did spy, and to my God my heart did cry, to straighten me in my distress, and not to leave me succorless. Then coming out, behold a space, the flame consumed my dwelling place. And when I could no longer look, I blessed his grace that gave and took, that laid my goods now in the dust. Yea, so it was, and so 'twas just. It was his own, not mine. Far be it that I should repine. He might have all justly bereft, but yet sufficient for us left. When by the ruins oft I passed, my sorrowing eyes aside did cast, and here and there the places spy, where oft I think that's supposed to be sat, and long did lie. Here stood that trunk, and there that chest, there lay that store I counted best. My pleasant things in ashes lie, and them behold no more shall I. Under the roof no guest shall sit, nor at thy table eat a bit. No pleasant talk shall e'er be told, nor things recounted done of old. No candle e'er shall shine in thee, nor bridegroom's voice e'er heard shall be. In silence ever shalt thou lie. Adieu, adieu, all's vanity. Then straight I again my heart to chide, and did thy wealth on earth abide. Didst fix thy hope on moldering dust, the arms of flesh did make thy trust. Raise up thy thoughts above the sky, that dunghill away may fly. Thou hast a house on high erect, framed by that mighty architect, with glory richly furnished, stands permanent, though this be fled. It's purchased and paid for too by him who hath enough to do, a price so vast as is unknown, yet by his gift is made thine own. There's wealth enough, I need no more. Farewell my pelf, farewell my store. The world no longer let me love, my hope and treasure lies above. Okay, so that's kind of a longer poem than either of the other two. And on the surface, it's just kind of about her house being caught on fire. She loses all this stuff. I feel like the message behind it is in these last two lines. The world no longer let me love, my hope and treasure lies above. She's like, even though I lost everything I own, it's okay because my hope and treasure lies above. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying. They don't really care about material things that much. All of their treasure and rewards are in heaven. This is pretty extreme because if my apartment caught on fire and I lost all my stuff, I don't think my immediate thought would be like, it's okay, I'm going to go to heaven someday. I'd be like, oh man, all my stuff is gone. I don't know what to do. I'd be really upset. She's not upset that all of her stuff has gone up in flames. She couldn't be bothered. I was going to look at two little parts here. Yeah, it said like when I looked at it, like she went out and just watched the flame for a while. And when I could no longer look, I blessed his grace that gave and took, that laid my goods now in the dust. Yes, so it was. And so 'twas just. She's like, when I saw my house burning and all my stuff getting destroyed, I just like thanked God. Because none of it ever belonged to me in the first place. It all belonged to him. it's all for him. And if he saw fit to let my house burn, then that's fine. Then that's fair. She says, it was his own, it was not mine. Far be it that I should repine. I'm not going to complain about all my stuff being burned to a crisp because all of it belonged to God anyway. I'm not worried. And then at the end, she kind of like takes store of everything that she had, talks about like, I'm not going to have this trunk anymore. Nobody's going to be able to come like eat at my house. I don't have a table anymore. I don't have anything anymore. But basically she's like, if this upsets you, if having your home burn upsets you, then you put your trust in earthly things too much. And I mean, it says, did fix thy hope on moldering dust, the arms of flesh did make thy trust. You're just trusting in mankind. You're not trusting in God. Raise up thy thoughts above the sky. Think about heavenly things. Think about what God wants for you. And you can kind of see anytime you see a random word capitalized, especially in like an old-timey poem, think about like, could this be a metaphor for something? The mighty architect, that's going to be God. I'm thinking of this other poem. I don't think we read that in American Lit. I think it's a British poem, but they talk about like the pilot overseeing your voyage, and pilot is capitalized, and that also means God. So like anytime you've got something capitalized, it's worth giving it a second look and thinking like, is there a metaphor, particularly something religious? Basically like the riches of heaven are eternal and the things of earth are not. So let's focus on getting those heavenly rewards and don't put your faith, don't put your happiness in earthly things. So that's basically it. That's those 3 poems, and you'll have access to those. The first one is the one that we did not read. So you're just choosing one of the 3 of those and describing any evidence of Bradstreet's values, explain any poetic devices you see. They probably all 3 have poetic devices, but the second and third ones are going to have more. Who is the speaker of this poem and what is his or her message? That's one thing that I didn't talk about, so that's kind of up to you. Just to reiterate, when I say speaker of the poem, the answer is not Anne Bradstreet. She is the author, but she's not necessarily the speaker. The speaker is more about who's actually talking in the poem, what do we know about them, what's their point of view, and it might be very different than the author. We don't really know too much about the author, so what can we figure out about the speaker of the poem? So that's it. Any questions about this or about any of the poems? All right. Well, we just have the rest of the time today to work on it. I'm about to write on the board what we're doing tomorrow, and I kind of talked with you guys in the first couple of days about kind of using Wednesdays as like catching up on stuff. If you don't have anything to catch up on, you can either do like free writing or work on IXL. If you have something for another class that you need to work on, you can do that. I'll give you more details about it tomorrow, but you'll kind of see when I write on the board, like, here are all these things you can work on. Hopefully nobody has any late work yet, but I don't think that's the case. Jesus, small. With you.